So it's the removal of intermediaries in a supply chain. It's what Clay Shirky calls supply-side shop. And disintermediation is really important because if you think about it, in lots of cases, and again, I'm not criticising you guys, the agency, we'll see there are some good parts and bad parts to this later, acts as a middleman between you, the developer, and the client. And sometimes they get in the way, and sometimes they do great things. But what they also do is they add an overhead on. And so that may not actually work out too well at the moment, as we'll come to in a minute. If you look at what's happening in the music industry at the moment, it's now really, really easy for somebody to create something and get it in front of their audience, even as a physical object. So this is a guy who is in Tooting, where I live, he records music, he burns it onto CDs, he goes and hands it out outside the local supermarkets because it's so cheap to do, and he builds an audience through individual rapport with people. This is very possible. And with cloud computing, this is now possible for us as developers. The cost of deploying an app is minimal. The cost of writing an app against lots of these APIs is low if you know what you're doing. And so it actually changes the game completely in terms of how easy it is to get very, very rich experiences out for clients if you think about it. You don't necessarily need to have an agency in the middle. And to give you an idea of this, this is the entire team of Doppler, who have built a very wonderful social network for travel. There's actually just 3 of them now, and they've got somebody on board to do marketing. Very, very small teams.
So what does this mean in a recession? What we're finding more and more is that clients are coming direct to us and missing out the agency. Whether this is a good or bad thing, we don't know. We don't like dealing with clients necessarily. It's a lot of overhead, as we're coming to shortly. But we're finding that there's a lot of cost to be cut there by missing them out. We're not saying this is good, bad, but it is happening more and more. And unless things change, we can just see this happening again and again in the upcoming months and over the next year as the recession hits further. And this is what they're using to justify it anyway to us.
We're also seeing situations where I saw one recently where a client came to me and they said that they'd had lots of agencies in who were trying to tell them how to build their product effectively. And these guys actually do a really large online product already. So had an agency come in telling them about user flows and telling them about sort of processes and things like that. This company has been online for about 5 years. It's very successful, has millions of users, it powers really large events, and they have one of the best user experience experts in the UK. And all they actually wanted was for somebody to tell them something really easy technically. And so this is where small, nimble, agile developers, I think, can make a big difference in the recession, is in helping clients to do quick wins without vast overheads.
Right, so we'll be glad that bit's over anyway. So we're going on to what we think is good about agencies now. So what do they do for clients? Because as Chris mentioned earlier, there's 3 parts to this. There's the client, the agency, and developers. And the agency kind of sits in the middle between the client and the developers, but they do a lot for clients, believe it or not. They reduce the burden of managing all these relationships. So it takes a lot of effort to manage clients, and we respect that. We know it does. We've had to deal with them direct. They want X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z aren't possible. They want constant updates. Developers want to get on with building stuff a lot of the time. They also need to communicate further up, but that's one of the great things. They understand the strategy. We quite often come in with the idea of how to make this go big quickly, or how to make a one-off campaign. They've run 4 or 5 campaigns for the same client. They understand the overall strategy, where this may fit in. So that's something we're never going to get. If Facebook's a recent thing, we haven't got that long-term experience with the client. They have it. Safe pair of hands. So the agency is known well, it's understood, it's a safe bet for the client. If they're using a particular agency in the UK, they'll keep going back to that agency again and again. So we're not going to have that trust yet. We need it, so we have to go through the agency. Media buying power. Developers, as far as I know, have no interest in buying ads. We sell them occasionally on our own apps. We do buy them for them, but in general, we don't buy that kind of volume because we don't need to. We find ways of doing it virally quite often. And people, especially indie developers, are very good at getting big campaigns done for viral and no money spent. So that's kind of what they do for clients. So what do they do for us? For us, it's reduce risk. We don't have to deal with the legal side of stuff. Quite often they bring that along, tie up the contracts. They introduce us to new clients. Ad agencies have a huge array of clients. They introduce us quite often to several of them. So for us, it's fantastic. It means we can focus on doing what we do best, building apps, building mini campaigns, and not having to go out there and hunt for clients. Once you work with an agency and they trust you, they come back again and again and again, quite often with a different brand, a different client, the same brand, or the same client with a different brand, you name it. So for us, that's fantastic. Business development. So we know that agencies do a lot of work having to handle clients and how to build up a relationship with them. Again, small teams don't have the time to do that. So business development, that's a great one for us. Ability to weave across media campaigns. So they can actually go horizontal across campaigns. We do very vertical niches, so we hit a niche and we build a small campaign. They can go vertically across the whole platform, whether they're doing online ad campaigns, whether they're doing microsites, you name it. This can now go horizontal across all of them. Foot in the door and reputation. So they do more and more of these things. You build up a reputation under their brand, but at the end of the day, if you're providing the horsepower behind that, they have to fall back to you to do that. We have had agencies go off on and decide to do stuff on their own, it fall over, and then come back to us the second time round. So reputation for us is fantastic as well. So I think, are you taking over now, or is it me?
I'll carry on.
You want to carry on?
So what should we do as developers in regards to how we deal with agencies? Well, my first sort of suggestion is actually no more free pitches to them. I've done quite a few of them, and actually none of them have gone very well. Not because the ideas weren't great, but just because you felt that they weren't as committed as if they put their hands in their pocket to the idea that you were doing. But at the end of the day, they're not going to say to their own staff, well, by the way, we're doing a pitch tomorrow, so you who's working on the pitch, you're not actually going to get paid. It seems crazy that they don't pay external people for their ideas. I think being involved in the pitch more where possible is a really good idea. This avoids the whole issue of sort of bottle about to be thrown at me. The pitches where I've actually been involved with going with the agency to the clients and explaining the ideas have always gone better both for me and the agency in those situations. We'll come on to a sort of bit about what that involves in terms of your relationship with the client in a bit. And I think, coming back to over-promising again, in the same way that agencies over-promise to clients, we shouldn't over-promise to agencies. Because over-promising leads to heartache, leads to lack of repeat business. And it's very much the stuff that was being talked about earlier. You have to deliver on what you promise. Don't promise something you can't achieve. So what must we do in terms of clients? Well, I think plain English, not geek speak, is a really important bit about this. If there's one thing the technical industry gets wrong a lot of the time, is that we love acronyms and we talk to each other in acronyms. And it's fine for us to talk to each other in acronyms, but let's not talk to clients in acronyms. I spend a lot of my time at the moment talking to people within different bits of government about opening up data and things like that. And plain English is the only way to go. And sometimes diagrams and drawings, it's wonderful. This comes back to educating clients. What we're doing at the moment is very much frontier territory. It feels like the Facebook garage has been around forever. Actually, it's probably only been around for under 2 years now? Facebook as a platform has been around for under 2 years now, about 2 years. This is very much early days. And so what we have to do is take clients along the journey with us. Don't just assume that they know everything. Don't just assume that they'll have been briefed by the agency. Help in the education process. Nixon McInnes, really wonderful social media agency, produce reports for free for people to download and read from their site. They go in and they do training with clients before they actually start work with them. It's actually a really good way of making sure that your clients are educated to know what to expect, both in the good sense, in terms of what successes are, but also in the bad sense, in the sense of moderation issues, trust issues, what might happen to their brand, and letting go. Letting go of your brand is the most important thing you can do on social networks. But it's completely alien to that 20th century mass media spin culture that I was talking about earlier. We need to make events like this more client-friendly. I think this is probably one of those client-friendly technology events there is in London, but it could still probably do better sometimes. And maybe a sort of an evening which is more client-focused, that's about education would be good. It's the role of the community to educate these people, to help them on a journey, both within agencies and within clients. And then more client handling skills. Learn from the agencies. They're really, really good at this stuff. And if there's a situation where disintermediation happens, because of the recession, we'll all need to be ready to step into that breach as developers, to actually go in and be trustworthy and understandable with these clients and to really sort of get the handling skills properly. So those are the solutions. And are there any questions?